Let's talk about Payton Pritchard and Kristaps Porzingis injury news on today's show. Welcome in. I am your host, Allie Barefoot. Number one, Payton Pritchard is still being underestimated. Why? We're going to break that down here on today's show. The back half, we actually heard from Joe Mazzualla on the recent status of KP. We knew that he left the game on Sunday versus the Wizards. He ended up not returning, but it's the Wizards. Did KP really need to play? We'll break down what Mazzualla had to say about his injury. But before I jump into that, back to PP. We know that he is absolutely in the running for Sixth Man of the Year this season. But now some analysts may be calling for whether or not this could be a unanimous Sixth Man of the Year award. Do you guys think so? Type Y for yes, type N for no. Pritchard obviously having the best season of his career. Not only is he helping the Boston Celtics win, but he's also breaking records while he does it. But we also do know that when you look at the Boston Celtics, you're really focused on the starting five, right? Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Al Horford, Porzingis, Holiday, Derek White, the rest of those guys. When you look at Pritchard, you still think bench player. Well, that's okay. He's taken that role, and he's absolutely flourished while he's doing it. But he needs to start gaining the respect amongst the league. Because when you look at what Pritchard is doing based off of other starters in the NBA, right now Payton Pritchard is making history for Boston, but he's also competing with other NBA players. And so far this season, with 100-plus three-pointers made in less than 30 games played, Payton Pritchard, he's currently in second with 101. Anthony Edwards is in first with 108. Anthony, obviously, arguably one of the best players in the Minnesota Timberwolves. He is producing night in and night out. But Payton Pritchard is doing it coming off the bench. So now we have teams that have to try and establish how they're going to beat the Boston Celtics. And you have to get through our starting five, maybe even starting six. And then you have to get through our bench. He is the secret weapon for the Boston Celtics. And not to mention, when he did hit this accolade to reach over 100-plus made three-pointers this season, he became the fastest Boston Celtic to ever reach this mark, as he did it in 26 games. He's improving offensively every single time he steps out on the court, but defensively, well, that's where we really need to break down. But Payton Pritchard established who he wants to be in the NBA. He didn't say anything about starting. He just wants to work on his skill set. I really want to be known as a two-way player. Sometimes I see things that say I'm a defensive liability, and that risks me. Every game I go out there, I try and prove that narrative wrong. Being a complete two-way player is something I'm always going to try and strive to be. So why is the NBA and players right now underestimating Payton Pritchard, a.k.a. Jordan Poole, who thinks that he can just crap all over Pritchard's game, which isn't true? Well, Pritchard tends to not struggle, but he does have less productivity on the defensive side than he does the offensive, but doesn't mean for a lack of trying. And Pritchard is still a very good guard and a very good defensive player, but when you see how well he does on offense, you do see that drop-off on the other side of the basketball. But whenever I watch Pritchard, there are three things that I continuously see improving each and every game. I love the fact that he's a switchable defender. And it's one of those things of the Sam Hauser. When Sam Hauser got switched on to Luka Doncic in the NBA Finals, I'm sitting here going, what is Sam Hauser doing guarding Luka? But then Hauser clamped him up. And I feel that same way for Payton Pritchard. He can switch from the team's point guard to a team's wing, maybe a team's center. I probably wouldn't switch him on there, but he holds the same ground. He's still strong going up against any player that does come in his path when he plays defense. And I think he is one of the scrappiest, most tenacious players when it comes to full court pressure. He reminds me of that gnat that's just always there at that picnic. He never gets away from his defender, from the guy he's defending, I should say. And I think that's what makes him so annoying to play against, but so lethal in his defensive ways. And not to mention, Pritchard, he's 6'1", and he's using his height as an advantage. He knows how to go around low. He knows how to snag steals around players' ankles. He knows that when that crossover is coming, he can step right in the way, put his arm in that path, and be able to deflect or steal that ball to give the Boston Celtics their possession back. So there are ways that Pritchard is useful on defense and how he is getting better. But I could see that when teams are looking at the scouting report, they're probably looking more so at Pritchard's ability to score a three and Pritchard's ability to drain it on any buzzer beater that ever happens to come in his way. So I'm going to break down a little bit more of Payton Pritchard's defensive game and how we can improve that moving forward. But before I do that, I do want to tell you guys about our sponsor on Celtics Today, and that is Prize Picks, the #1 daily fantasy sports app in America, the app that I play every single game day. So does producer Jack. So if you guys want to be like the cool kids, all you have to do is just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash this December. You heard me correctly. You can run your game all season long on Prize Picks, and you can play with over 10 million active members. Not to mention, this is the best place to get real money action while watching your favorite sports. And if you join now, do it this holiday season because Prize Picks is giving away 2 free picks in December, and they're giving away $30+ million in rewards during Picksmith. So obviously I had to go with one of those free squares, and essentially what they're saying is if Joker scores 1 point, you win. That is a 99.99999% success rate. So go on ahead, secure your box. And then I do have Josh Allen going up against the New England Patriots, and I do have him having more than 249.5 passing yards for that game this Sunday. So if you guys want to go on ahead and make your Prize Picks, that's the easiest part. All you guys have to do is download the app, use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Download the app today, use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Pritchard's overall defense, so his numbers aren't terrible. When you look at his overall defensive field goal percentage, which means opponents are scoring 44.6% of their field goals going up against Payton Pritchard. Not terrible, not great. His 3-point percentage, though, is incredible. Pritchard, when it comes to perimeter defense, is locked down. They are scoring 28.6% of their threes when Pritchard is playing that very tight, tenacious type of defense. But inside the 3-point line is where Pritchard's 6'1" height may come as more of a disadvantage to Pritchard's game. Less than 6 feet, obviously around the post or that rim, well, most of the time you're going to be able to score on Pritchard because most of the guys scoring down there have the height to be down there. And then same thing, less than 10 feet, now you're looking at some of your elbows, your mid-range jumpers. Sometimes when Pritchard plays such close defense, when he plays against a better guard with great dribbling skills, they know how to pull him off him, hit that step back, hit that fadeaway, which Pritchard isn't the best at recovering once he's been pushed off of his opponent. 58% from, that should say field goal percentage, and that should say 3-point percentage. Never mind, it's been a long day, but you get the gist. Pritchard, obviously a better perimeter defender than he is like a post defender or a rim defender, and that's okay. But I do think that the reason why I get this question a lot is, Allie, should Pritchard be the starter for the Boston Celtics? Offensively, he is producing better than Jrue Holiday right now. But defensively, that is what's keeping him from being a starter. Not that Pritchard wants to be, not that we need him to be, but when you've got the most rare backcourt duo in having 2 all-defensive NBA players in Derek White and Jrue Holiday, it's kind of hard to break that and get in the starting lineup when Holiday and and Derek White, they flow off each other. They know where to be. They know their roles. And Pritchard offensively could make a big splash, but defensively, Holiday needs to be in that starting lineup ahead of Payton Pritchard. And I do think that he'll continue to work on his defense, but he's going to do it for himself and to be a more well-rounded player. He's not going to do it because he wants Jrue Holiday's starting job. He just wants to be a dog, which I already think he is. So I have a question here for you guys. Which area of defense should Pritchard work on? I'm obviously going to go with that less than 10 foot. I would like to see him be able to stick with his man while they do the fadeaways, while they do those floaters. I think Pritchard could become a really good two-way player if he moves that perimeter defense and just continues to stay with his man even when they start to drive. But I do want to talk about Kristaps Porzingis here as well. We do know that Porzingis obviously has been not playing the beginning of the season with that injury. Then he comes back, and so far Porzingis has played 7 games for the Boston Celtics, but he's only played 5 full games for Boston because he has left 2 of those games with an injury. One did come on Sunday when they played the Washington Wizards, and he left with right heel pain. Kristaps, after the game, said it's nothing to worry about, just precautionary. He just didn't need to go back in the ballgame because we were beating the Washington Wizards by such a high margin. But then today, Joe Mazzualla comes out with another injury update. Still nothing to, write home about or nothing to raise a red flag, but he said he's getting better. He's in the weight room right now. He's going to go through some shooting, and then we'll see how he is. This is where it starts to make me a little bit nervous. We'll see how he is day to day. I don't really want Porzingis to be day to day. Obviously, it's a lot better than like an ankle sprain and he's out 4 to 6 weeks or 2 to 4 weeks. But when you say day to day to me, it seems like they're still working through something. And that's where it starts to make me a little bit hesitant to really try and figure out what's going on with Porzingis. He says that most of his injuries that he's had so far since he's returned from his rehab process, they're precautionary. And I get that. When KP comes off the court and says something hurts, they're more than likely going to pull that card and say, you know what, don't go back in. Horford go in, Kornet, Kata. They prepared for this. But when Joe Mazzualla says that he's day-to-day, and then you hear Kristaps Porzingis saying it's nothing to worry about, I'm now starting to get a little bit of conflicting reports because I don't know if this is something that KP's pushing through or this is something they're now monitoring for whether or not Kristaps Porzingis will be able to play for the Boston Celtics on Thursday and moving forward. And thankfully, right now, in my opinion, in this point of the season, they're not all must-win games, obviously. Most of the games after the All-Star break is when I'm like, all right, this is when we really need to start pushing as hard as we can to get to the finish line, which, of course, is playing in late June. But they do play on Thursday versus the Chicago Bulls, and right now, like I said, the Celtics are minus 14.5 favorites. So with a line like that, you don't underestimate the Bulls. They are very scrappy. They're starting to find their rhythm, and they can give us the works. But is it a game that Kristaps Porzingis needs to play? You want him to play because you pay the man to play basketball, but if you don't want him to get injured, it's something we're going to have to keep monitoring moving forward. But we will be live for this ball game, Bulls at Boston on Thursday. Come hang out with me, and as always, latest injury news, rumors, highlights, breakdowns, you're going to find them right here on Celtics Today by Chat Sports. So all you guys have to do is subscribe.